Okay, let's give a couple minutes for everyone to join in and to connect to the audio, and we're gonna get this party started.
Oops. There you go.
All right, let's get on it. Okay, welcome everyone to the XAFers Community Stand-Up. We do this the second Thursday of every month. We have received a lot of requests and a lot of feedback to go back to basics and just pretty much give an overview of XAF, give an overview of action, of controllers, of the model, of modules, and so on. So today, meetup will be really fun because even ourselves always learn a lot of all those fundamentals. So with me is Jorge and Dave, both DevExpress MVP. I will let them introduce themselves and then we go from there.
So I guess I'll go first. So my name is Jose Ojeda. I work for Sari and for Bit Frameworks. I'm a DevExpress MVP, and I enjoy writing about technology and doing basically experiments with technology. And that's everything for my side. So, Dave?
Yeah, thank you. Dave from Llama Chat Technology. We do consulting, training, custom development, all the fun stuff. We love doing this. This is fantastic for us. So, Jose?
Oh, perfect. Okay, so today we're going to be, again, XAF 101. Let's go to basics. Let's go to fundamental. By looking at the chat, I think that I pretty much know most of all the XAFers that are joining us today. But if there is someone new that has not used XAF before, it will be amazing to know that. So we can pretty much show you the magical XAF, and I guarantee you will be amazed. From there, as always, please join the community. There is a big power in the community. In our Facebook group, we are more than 1,200 right now. We have also a LinkedIn group. Of that, there is also almost 3,000 members. So right here is also being published all the new things that is going on in XAF. Follow XAF on Twitter. Right here, you can see there is a lot of new things coming up, especially in XAF Blazor and Entity Framework Core with new audit trailing, a new separate database, and you see new health topics about lookup property editor, new things on the model. This is a great way to be on top of everything that is happening new. We also have a Gitter where ourselves and pretty much all the few XAFers in the community are there answering questions, sharing their experience. So go for it. We also have a TikTok where we put like teasers of things that we have developed in XAF. Of course, as always, go to the support center, read all those tickets. That will give you a really great insight of everything that is going on. And a new thing that we're starting in XAFer training. So we have received a lot of demand for XAF developers. This is something that right now is really hot. COVID has been like every time more people need a digital solution, and XAF is the perfect framework to develop line of business applications. So right here, XAFer training, we're starting a program where we're going to train you on intensive training. I'm gonna guarantee you a job in the next 3 to 5 months. So if you are interested in this approach, please reach out. Let us know about you. Let us know about what you have done. If you have not done anything in XAF, that's perfectly fine. If you are a college student, if you cannot afford training, please contact Hotel Way. We have a lot of scholarships available. So let's just meet with us and see if you qualify. And of course, if you actually get a job offer from us, the full cost of your training will be completely refunded. For the employers, hey, if you are in need of a XAF developer and is hiring XAF developer is a nightmare for you, if your hires are not fully trained, please reach out to us. We can help. We have trained a lot of devs, a lot of XAF developers, and we can provide fully trained quality XAF devs that will touch the floor running. They can be creating production code on day one. And to sweeten the deal, also Sari will be providing consulting free of charge if you get one of our devs. So with that promo out of the question.
Javier, yeah. Sorry, you're sharing the wrong screen.
Yes. You should have told me. Yeah. Okay, let me see again. Let's come back to it. Are you guys seeing the screen now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, let's come back to it. Okay, Meetup, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Gitter, TikTok, Super Center, and the XAFers training page for outsourcing developers. So training and get a job guarantee. your offer with a competitive salary. And for employees, if you're needing a SAF developer that you can put to work and create production code right away, let us know and we can provide that and we can meet and get those things started. So today we're going to be talking about SAF 101. So let's go back to basics. Let's talk about what is the purpose of SAF, what is the SAF audience, what is the architecture, concept. Let's talk about security, the advantage, what is the UI customization, performance. We're going to do a few demos, and in this regard, I would love for anyone on the chat or the participant even to suggest what do you guys want to do. We always do the customer invoice, but we can do a to-do list. We can do pretty much any application. As you know, in SAF, we can get it an app really quick. In 20 minutes, we can have a couple of classes and we can have a few functionalities. So we're going to also, Dave will do a great demo of the scheduler module. If you guys would like to see any other module as well, we can cover it here. Ask as many questions as you want. We're going to start with a PowerPoint that was a webinar that we did like 2 years back about how to use the learning curve. So I'm gonna pass the screen to Jose. So Jose can like basically go first about the introduction, SAF overview and so on, and then we come back to the next part of the meetup.
Okay, just 1 second here. Let me get the screen ready.
We can definitely show Kanban grid view by the end of the meetup. We have it on Windows, we have it on Blazor, so that would be a fun demo to show. Thank you, Jan-Paul.
Okay, so Javier, I will start with what is SAF and XPO, and then you continue with the other
absolutely.
part of the presentation.
And I think that everyone here on the chat pretty much is already a SAFer, so we're gonna go briefly, quickly to all the overview and introduction, but then we're gonna do some code that I think that I want everyone to see.
Okay, so let me start sharing, and I will start with that. Okay, guys, so first we're going to start by defining what XAF is. Basically, XAF is a framework to develop line of business application. In general, like if you ask me what is a line of business application, is like some type of model that you use in enterprises where you have need for a security module, basically, to allow the users to log in, log off, and grant permissions, and also do the CRUD operations over business objects. So the parts that SAFs take care for us are the database design, that they do it through XPO, which is the ORM. It doesn't only support XPO, it also supports entity framework. So if you come in from any of both worlds, XPO or entity framework, you can basically use the SAF in general to develop applications. And okay, so other thing that SAF does for you is it generates the UI for you based on your business model. So this is one of the things that is more, for me, is one of the most important in SAF, because in general, I'm not a front-end developer. I never been, and I guess well, like now with Blazor, I feel like I will, but I never draw UIs, and my UIs always looks awful in general. So that's the reason why I started to use SAF, because I can worry about only the logic, and as long as the logic is good, the UI is really useful and is like more than I will do myself in general. Other parts that SAF cover is like usually you have to do reporting for enterprise applications. So it's integrated with that. And of course, I said that first, the security module. So what is SAF in general is something like it's an application framework, but it's like it gets you the best of both worlds in general. You can have a highly customized application, but in general, you can also go through make a small application. Is that you don't need to know all the ins and outs of SAF to develop an application. The more you know, the easier the development will be. But it's not something that you need to go through a lot of trainings to start working on SAF in general. So what are the things that SAF give you in general? This is something that I like a lot also, is it gives you a single code base for your application. It doesn't matter if your application is a web application, a Windows application, or a mobile application right now, like at least a mobile compatible application. So basically like 99% of the code that you write will be somehow agnostic, and then you publish just to the different platforms. Um, it covers like most of the popular platforms at the moment, which are Windows and web, and now we have some small steps going on to the mobile. It's a really mature framework. We got this question like 2 days ago, like, is it worth it to work with SAF at the moment that is um, so mature? And that's a kind of a strange question, because in general, remember that some people don't want to move to a technology when it's like too early, but also they don't want to move when it's too mature because they think it's about to die. But anyway, that's not happening, so don't worry about that. Basically, the architecture is transparent. There is no black box inside. If they give you the source code, and if you need to do something, you can just basically um, go and look in the source code or ask the support center how to modify it. There are like thousands, and this also really nice is like there are like a lot of information about SAF, not only in the official place, which is the support center. You also have like all the MVP's blogs, and there is a lot of people writing, so you can have support on that way. The community, well, we have like a few places for the community. We have the community in Spanish, we have the community in English, and both of them are kind of big at the moment, so you can actually get support from other members. And of course, you have the support from Developer Express, which is something that is amazing. It's like in 24 hours, you will have an answer. So SAF also leverage the two worlds in general. Like, for example, you can be really into developing an application from the scratch, and you will have to do a lot of plumbing code or code that is like boilerplate code that you will use only once in your application. So maybe it's better to rely that in someone who have done it before and who do it really well. For example, a lot of people tell me like, okay, I want to have an application, but I want to develop my own security system. Well, like that will take you a lot of time to do it right, and it's really difficult, and it will eat a lot of the time developing your application. So it's better to use something that already provides a security system. So as you can see, SAF is in the middle between something that might be considered codeless, which is like one of the extremes, and totally custom development that you start from the program and first line. So something in between, I would say, is more lean to the codeless somehow. It's more to that side, because a lot of the stuff are getting handled for you. Okay, so for whom is SAF for? Basically for any .NET developer. Of course, there are some things that will not work on F#, but it's regarding the application templates, because in the end, .NET is just one runtime. So once you compile, everything is the same inside. So basically, you can target any of the languages that .NET uses, and basically the primary target audience is for the people who is developing lines of business application. Of course, in SAF, you will not make an asteroid games. And also, in general, is good for small offices, because you can develop even faster than big shops, just with a few programmers. And well, regarding that, we have the case of Martin, one of the MVPs from Developer Express, which with a low number of developers it handles like a big number of customers. So that's also really interesting case.
Yeah, Jose, I think that we can skip about all this testimonial and everything. Pretty much, basically, I think that the overview. And can you go to the slides on top? I can take care of it. I can take care of it. Okay. Don't worry. So the main idea of SAF is SAF take care of all the low level tasks that you don't have to do. Database creation, UI generation.
Javier, again, you're sharing the wrong screen.
Yes. It's not my day today.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah, great.
Well, I think that everyone's known that my apartment emergency water is shut off. It was on my email. So, okay. So the important part to cover here is that SAF take care of all those low-level tasks for you. Database creation, generate the UIs for you. So that the great thing about that is as your model grows, so as you have more classes, as you have more entities, you don't have to do anything. The tables keep getting created for you, the views get created for you, and that means lookup view, list view, detail view, and so on. And also, if we're going to compare with something like no code, it has a lot of modules out of the box with a lot of functionality for you. It has already security, dashboards, reports, validation, appearance, audit trail. So most of those are ready for you, ready to go. And the other great thing is that you can customize all of them. You can make sure that the apps does the behavior that you want. And actually, one ticket now that we are discussing about this that I found really interesting, I think that it was this one, that they were talking about just the SAF security system, not the complete SAF framework. And they were talking about the SAF security system that support like 1,000 concurrent users. And for the first time, because we know that DevExpress is really cautious about saying that SAF can provide application for a huge amount of users, because honestly, if you're going to handle a big amount of concurrent users, always they're going to have to be some, there is database maintenance, there always going to have to be some hardware related configuration. It's not only the framework, so we cannot expect that just we use SAF and we're good to go. But for the first time, I have seen DevExpress saying, okay, SAF is different from, SAF security is different from the UI, so there is no limit or restriction in the amount of users that you can use. So that will tell you that if you have your design correctly, the possibilities is that you can handle a lot of load. And if you have seen, I'm not sure, I gave a talk like 2 weeks ago in the Azure Summit, right here, no, the next one, I think that I have it. Right here, I did a talk about hosting, deploying, and scaling Blazor server apps. And you will see that using Azure Synchronization service and using app service, the possibility to load 100,000 concurrent users for, I believe the price was like $161 for Azure Synchronization service and the cost of the app service, of course. And you can have a huge amount of users at the same time in your application. Of course, this is Blazor server by itself. It's not SAF. SAF adds a little bit of overhead, but pretty much basically the bottleneck is memory, because as if you know in Blazor server applications, while you are seeing in the screen, let's think that this site that I have here is a Blazor app. The component that you are seeing, that class is instantiating in memory. So as other users connect, the screen that they are seeing is the class in memory. So every new user will have that memory. So at the end, memory is the primary bottleneck. So if you have a good amount of memory in your server, you should pretty much be good to go for the first 1,000 of users or something like that. And those are the metrics that Microsoft provide, where they say that with I think that 1 core and 3 GB, you can handle 5,000 concurrent users, and with 14 GB and 3 core or 4 cores, you can handle 20,000 concurrent users. So the first bottleneck is memory. The other one is the Signal connection, and that's what you need to use Signal service. And the end is, of course, CPU and everything. But even using Signal service takes CPU out of your server. So the possibilities here are really promising, and hopefully at some point we can do some type of performance testing. But let's continue with it. So pretty much, let's just focus on, like, we know what is SAF. We can talk about it, make us really productive, because again, you have, like, when you are developing line of business application, as you were saying before, you need to have developer, you need to have a database admin, you need to have a designer, you need to have, so right here we can take care of, just focus on the business side. So of course we have a couple of terminology about object space, views, controller, actions, modules, and models, and we're gonna cover them real quick, and we're gonna pass to do a demo. In the meantime, if you guys again have any, because I want to make it really dynamic,
Interactive.
so interactive. If you guys have a demo that you want to see, you guys want to see maybe a point of sale, and we create a product, and we create an order, and we create a customer, and then we try to do like a sale, and we put an action in the detail view to pay, or so. We always do the customer invoice, but feel free to suggest one. If not, we just do one at that moment. So right here, let's talk about all this terminology that we have here. So the first one will be the object space. So pretty much on the great thing is that you have an interface. Let me just mute real quick. Got it. So we have an interface that is object space interface that takes care of the type of objects that you're using. So if you're using persistent objects, like it will go to XP object space or entity framework object space. And of course, right here, we're missing entity framework core object space, and we're missing here non-persistent object space, but basically it's just a common API that will allow you to do your data access. That's all we need to know there, actually. So from there, we can move to the next one. We have views, and we have detail view, list view, and lookup view. And of course, we have dashboard view as well. So that will, the great thing is all this view gets generated for us. So as our model grows, all these views grow. And I know that we have covered this before, but I think that repetition is the master of perfection. So we're gonna get quickly. Controllers. So we have view controllers, window controller. View controller are specific to a view, so only for the detail view, only for the list view, or for all the views. A window controller is more pertaining to the whole window of the application, and object view controller is everywhere the object shows. Those controllers can have several types of actions. Simple action that is just a button one click, pop-up action that it will show you a pop-up to ask you for certain information, parameterized action where you're going to type something, single action where you're going to select one, and people have asked me, hey, there are only like 4 or 5 actions. Believe me, that's more than enough for everything that you need to do in your application. Modules, if you see here, and right here, we are not showing all the modules. We have audit trail, chart, clone, conditional appearance, dashboard, file attachment, maps, scheduler, validation, and so on, so on, so on. And where Dave will show only the scheduler model, and you will see only with just one module the capabilities, the amount of things that we can achieve. From there, let's continue. Let's talk about community modules. We have expand, we have ultra modules, we have Yamachan, we have send dev SAF dashboard, and I'm pretty sure that probably few of you have some of modules that is not open source and not shared with the community that you're using in your application. So it's really extensible all the way through. Okay, let's do a quick demo, Jose, just a simple app just to show like the capabilities, and then Dave does the demo of the scheduler, and then we go from there.
Okay, Javier, so basically what I'm going to do is a small app where I show how the relationships affect how the UI looks in SAF. So
Perfect.
if there is no one suggesting anything, let's do the normal invoicing stuff that we always do. But in general, it's a good example, I think. So just let me open. I had a studio open because you never know the demo effect, right? That it's not going to compile or something. So, okay. But I'm going to start from scratch, I guess. That will be better. So just one sec.
One thing that is important to mention, Jose, is like how the detail views and the list view are generated. Like the detail view has a property editor for each property. The list view has a list editor for all that one. We can customize those. For example, right now, we don't have a scheduler module for SAF Blazor, but you have the scheduler control for Blazor. So you can actually do a list editor and have your implementation of the scheduler module.
Okay, so let me start sharing so we can start with the demo. And just to confirm, because we've been sharing the run window all day, you're watching my studio, right? That's what you're seeing.
We are.
Okay, so let's start with the Dev Express application. And this will be SAF 101 _2 because there is one already. I started just to test that the studio was working. You know how it is, right? So let's create this. Okay, so at the beginning, the first thing that it will prompt you is like which framework you want to target. Most people is familiar with this wizard already because it's the current wizard. Before there was two separate ones. One if you want to target Net Core, Net 5, and so on and so forth, and one if you want to target Net Framework, which is something that's going to be kind of freeze at the moment, because there will not be more development from Microsoft side on this, like on the full Net framework. So everything will continue on Net 6. So let's continue here. And for some reason it goes to the other monitor, but anyway, then it asks you like which type of application would you like to develop. Like at this moment you have like two possible targets, which are Windows Forms for Net 5 and oh, this is the wrong version, so sorry. Let me start again with that because I choose the full framework instead of the
So we're gonna have XAF 101.3.
Yeah, so XAF 101.3. So create. We're going to use NetCore in this case, and we're going to develop a XAF solution. So let's run this. So it's going to be a Windows Forms application targeting Net 5 or and depending on how you do it, right? Web application using NetCore and Blazor. So we're going to use both at the moment. So next thing is what you want to use. We love XPO. Actually, we think that is the best ORM right now in the market, but it doesn't mean that you cannot use something like Entity Framework Core, which is something really neat, and maybe your team already is developing on that. So lately we're using both, even though our preferred flavor is always XPO. So then it asks you which type of authentication you want. In this case, let's go into with the most basic authentication, with this user and password, but we will not authenticate against other services. So we'll just keep that in the local user of XAF. And this was a nice addition. A lot of people love it. Basically, right now, it's asking you like which modules do you want to implement at the beginning. So it doesn't mean that you cannot implement them later. You always have the time to basically implement any other module. But if you do it at the beginning, it kind of will save you a lot of time in general. So in this case, I'm going to use the clone object module. That's something that you use to make copies of objects. Then I will use the most common modules that you might need to use in a line of business application. So conditional appearance. Of course, in every application, you need to change the state of the screen depending on some business condition, right? So that's what we use this module for. And then I will include reports. That is something that, of course, every application needed, and validation. So let's finish. And let's put this here. And let's move the studio there. Okay, so this is what we have, and this is a little bit overwhelming for new developers. Usually, in most of the companies, when you go and check, okay, show me your Windows Forms application, they open a solution and they show you an application with just one project, which is the Windows Forms project. So that's usually how the traditional development goes. But in XAF, it's done by layers. So basically, you have the agnostic layer, which is a module that implements functionality that is not related to any platform at all. So this will run on web, Windows, or anything that XAF is running at the moment. And then you have the specialized implementations for, in this case, for Blazor, because that's what we're using for web, and for Windows. So Most of the time, the development that you will do will be in the agnostic module. This is the one that I'm highlighting at the moment. But sometimes you need to access platform-specific code, and you will have to do it in the platform-specific modules. But at the moment, we're going to start with just adding some business objects. So let me compile this at least once before I continue. And okay, compilation is done. So the first thing that you have to do in any application is define your business object. So usually this is the first place where you save time, because since I started in writing code like kind of long time ago, around 20 years ago, before we used to have all these other tools to do the first stage of the application. So we used to use something that was called Power Designer, which basically you design your ORM, your uh, your entity relationship model, and then from that you generate the queries to create the database, and so on and so forth, right? So that step is not necessary at the moment. Usually in a SAF application, you start in a code first approach. So the first thing that you do is basically writing code and just code, right? That will actually create the database and so on and so forth. So let's start with that. So the structure of each module is almost exactly the same, and they work the same also. So there is nothing special or difference between all of these three modules. The main difference is that they contains different references. For example, if you check the agnostic module, you will not see any reference that is platform related. For example, Windows Forms reference or Web Forms reference or Blazor in this case. But if you check the Blazor one, you will see um, that you will have reference to basically the netcore in general, and you will have web references. In here is not that obvious as in the net framework version, because in the net framework version you see system web in the web modules and system Windows Forms in the Windows modules, but here is not that obvious because everything is a NuGet package in general. Okay, so let's start defining business objects. So they show you here like a small layout of how your project should be set, but these folders, they don't mean anything. You can just delete them if you want and just start in the root of the application of the project, or just you can use the folder. So I'm going to use these folders in this case. So let's add a new persistent object. So in this case, I'm going to use an XPO domain object because I choose XPO at the beginning, right? So that's what I need. So let's start with customer. And also one thing that you need to notice here is that I'm writing all the names in singular, just because it will play nice with everything else. So they want you to write the names of the entities on singular, and then in some places it will be pluralized for you anyway. This is the opposite as entity framework, where you write the names of the classes in plural, and then they do the singular for you. So this will be customer. And okay, let's start with a really simple class. And here they put for you like a lot of comments on some stuff that you might use in the domain object or in the persistent object, but it kind of gets solved because if you do this every day, I mean, the first thing that you will do is delete all those comments. So let's delete it to make it more clear. And okay, we have a domain object here, which basically is an XPO object. If you check the base of base object, it will end up being a custom object from XPO. So base implementation, so see, XP custom object. So it's only one more layer, and usually this is done because they want to change how the keys are being generated. But that's basically it. So let's try to define the properties here. So XPO. I will use the control shortcuts. So sometimes you will not see how I write the full property, but you will see like how it is being expanded. So let's start with the string. So for that, I will use XPS. So XPS code. So that defines a string property. And there is something that you need to notice here. And I've seen this in many places where people don't like to use the special setter. The special setter is actually needed for if you want to have a smooth functionality in XAF, because a lot of the functionality in XAF depends on the triggering of the change notification. So that's how every UI basically reacts to the changes in the data. So in this case, we have the special setter. So keep in mind that you need to use that. You can use a normal set, but you will lose a little bit of the functionality and you will have unexpected results also. So it's better to keep using the shortcuts. Now, okay, so we have the code. Then again, I will go with XPS. Let's do a name. And so far, like one other thing that you need to notice is that there is a size attribute in the top. So that defines how big is the property at the database level. But this is only used at the beginning when the database is being created, but not during the application lifetime. So now let's define some other properties. Right now we have only like strings. So let's try to define something different. Like for example, if it's active, we can do that with XPB. So active. And then let's try to do some other like more complex type of data, like for example, a date. So let's add a date with XPDate created on. So let's run this at least one time so you can see the functionality. Basically, what is going to happen is since we use the XAF template, it takes care of already a lot of stuff for us. So just let me explain you the flow. Is at the beginning, what will happen is there is already a connection string set up for you. So when you start the application, and for this we'll see the Windows application, there is one event that will trigger that is really important, which is the database mismatch. So if that is triggered, it means that you cannot connect to the database or the database doesn't exist. And this is like one of the things that get people confused at the beginning. So when this is triggered, basically it means you cannot connect or it doesn't exist. So it will try to connect, at least if it's in development mode. So if you're running from the studio, that means that the debugger is attached and the schema will be updated for you. That's something that doesn't happen in deployment time or when you compile for release, because the debugger is not attached. So this is one part of the magic that I like from XAF, that you can continue developing your model and then everything gets generated for you, the database, it gets updated for you, and then also the views. So let's run this, and I will run it on Windows Forms, and then we will continue. So I want just to show you that the database is being created for us, and also that some data will be already there because of the updater. So that's what I'm going to show next.
Okay, and let's try to do like a pair programming faster, so we can show the development productivity, and then we still will have time for Dave to do her demo, for you to show the entity framework, Sync framework, at least the theory, for me to show the Blazor Kanban. So there are a few things. So let's
actually, if you want to join, like, so we can like develop this like faster, because maybe I will try to show some features that are not interesting at the beginning, or like for most of the people right now is like is a regular in the in the meetup, so they might already know this. So if there is something that you want me to highlight, just tell me like at any moment. So, okay, we have the customer here, and then we have the detail view, which is the form that you use to enter the records. And you have the list view, which is where you see like all the records that already exist for that domain object. So let's create just one. So 001, this is me. I'm an active customer, and it was created on today. So as you can see here, you have it also in the list. So there is one thing that is really nice about XAF is the creation of the model. So after you add your business objects, every time that you compile and run, okay, we know that the mismatch is being triggered all the time if the database is different. But what I like to show you here is like what happened with your entity. So we have defined just a business object, a customer, and it's being represented in two different ways, at least at the moment. So if I open the model here, you will see that stuff generated at least two views for us. So if you go to the view section and then you go to your namespace, then you will see that here we have views for these three type of objects, which are the objects that we have here on the business object folder. And also for each of them, let's take customer as an example, you get the detail view, the list view, and the lookup list view. So you get all the possible representations of the object that you might need to maintain the data, right? So the form, the list, and when you want to refer it in another object, you need the lookup. So that's for all the types that you have defined as business objects. So let's continue with this. Now I'm going to show like a small association. So customers usually they have invoices, right? So let's create an invoice. And okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is like date. I'm going to add a date. And also I'm going to add a reference to the customer. That's where it starts getting interesting. So if you have done combo boxes or lookups in traditional development, you know how much time that takes. You need to drag the control, you need to add a data source for that control specifically. Then you need to set up which is the display value and the key value. So that takes forever. Every time that you have to do a combo box is a really time consuming task. But let's do it in the SAF way. So in here, I know that a customer might have many invoices, so I'm going to create a relationship. This is going to be XPA, so it's the one side of the relationship. So this will be customer and customer. And see, that's why you need to write the names in singular, because here is being pluralized. For example, you see invoices here. Now let's go to the other side. Let's go to the customer, and the customer will have a collection of invoices. So that's also the plural and the singular will be used there. So let's try the collection. This will be XPCL. So this will be invoices. Invoice, and as you can see, this match what I have here. So then let's write this at least one time, and let's see how the UI changed and what was provided for us. Okay, so the first thing that you will notice is that we have two navigation items. So every time that we add a domain object, we're getting a navigation item, and that's for one reason. So the reason is that if we go and check the code, both of these classes are decorated with the default class options. That kind of means something for SAF in general. It means that you will get a navigation item, that those entities will be available for reporting, and basically that also you can use them in pivots and any other stuff like that. So let's go back to the application, and now we have invoices. So let's create a few invoices. So this is one of the parts that I like the most about SAF. So let's create a new record, and okay, let's set the date here. And here now, since we defined that the invoice contains a property that is type of customer, now in here I will see a lookup of customers. So I didn't have to set up anything in the UI, and everything is done for me. So this is a huge time saver. Like, well, everything that SAF does in general is a time saver, but this is one of the one that I like to highlight the most, because in some type of systems, you have entities which are full of lookups, maybe 20 lookups. And just to do that in a manual way will take forever in general. So let's see, we have, no, we don't have anything on the chat. So let's continue. So I will add a few invoices. And then I'm going to go and check the other side, right? The side of the customer. So if we go to the customers here, we have one. And see, the screen got it changed basically. So now right now we have the customer in the top, and in the bottom we have the collections of invoices. So from here you can also interact with this invoice collection. You can create a new invoice, or you can link a new invoice that was not associated to this customer. Also, depending on how much you know about XPO and defining your objects, that can save you time regarding the usage of SAF. For example, these questions we got a lot from the students. It's like, why do I have these two links actions here? Why can I pull a detail from another object? That's not correct. So at the moment, if you don't know why that is happening, you might have to do a controller and then get the actions and disable them, but that's not the right path. So I always tell the students, like, the more you know about how defining XPO objects, the less things that you need to know to do on the SAF side. So this is kind of really something really simple to fix. Basically, you have two types of relationships: aggregated relationship and not aggregated relationships. That means that an aggregated relationship is like when I delete the master object, if I should delete everything that is associated with it. And it also means that any detail that is associated with it cannot exist without the master object. So you get that case on the invoices. For example, if you cannot have an invoice without the customer, it doesn't make sense, right? And also, if you delete a customer, you might have to delete their invoices. So in this case, what we need to do is like tell the customer entity that the collection is part of the object itself. You do that by adding another attribute. So this will be the express XPO aggregator. Right now, the UI will change just by adding that attribute. So you will not see the link actions, and you will not see the customer property if you navigate to the invoices view from the customer. So let me show you that. Okay, so see, the set of actions change, because right now it's only showing delete and new. It's not showing the links actions. And also when we open here a record from this view, you will not see the customer property here. If we remove the aggregated, you will see the customer property here. So the behaviors change depending on the decorations on the objects, even though you don't have to write code for all of that. That's also one of the beauty, right? That with declarations, you can change a lot of the behaviors without having to write custom code for it. And lastly, because here, I mean, in this type of demo, I can use all the session if I want, and so I don't want to take forever, I'm going to run this on web, in Blazor specifically. So you can see that just with the same code, like basically a shared code base, you have an application that can work as a Windows application or a desktop application or as a web application. So let's run this. And actually, this application is connecting to the same database, so you will see exactly the same as we saw on the desktop application. Okay, so here we have the customer. We have the customer that we entered already, and we have the same views, right? Like detail view. Now we have a list view here, like it's nested, and we have the list view at the beginning, and then we have the view for invoices with the same data again and the same forms. So you get everything like for both platforms if you do it in the agnostic manner. Javier, anything else that you want to show here, like, or you want me to highlight?
No, I think that again, for me the most important part to show is like it took more time for you to explain all of this than to actually do it. So if you get in your application and just pretty much create a few classes, right away you have all your views, right away you have the database created, you have the tables. Then if you saw that pretty much you add a datetime field, you have a datetime property editor here. If you go to the list view, you have a list editor with the grid list editor that shows all your information in a list way. And we have the reports there that we can actually just create new and do a report. So I think that is a good segue. So we can move so Dave can do a demo of the scheduler. So you will see how easy and how powerful the scheduler is. And if there is any other module or any other suggestion in the chat, we can go to that module. We can check and show validation, same machine or any other one. And of course, I'm going to show the Kanban that Jan Paul
everyone is looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave, the screen is all yours, and then we move from there.
Sounds good. Thank you. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
Yeah, like everyone's having problems with that today.
And you should see my, which one is this? Yep, that's the right one. You see my project now? What is this crap?
Yes.
Get out of here. Here we go. Beautiful.
Yeah, you're showing the studio, so.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, so I wanted to cover the scheduler module a little bit today. When people start getting into XAF for the first time, the scheduler tends to be a little bit, it seems a little bit complex. And so I wanted to kind of demystify a bit of that and how it kind of works. So when I set up my project, or my solution, all I did was add the scheduler module. That's actually the only thing I have in here right now. And didn't put security or anything on here. So it's really, really, really basic. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this. So I set up my connection string, so on and so forth. And out of the box, you're going to get the scheduler event navigation item, which looks just like it you see here with the calendar control. And when you go ahead and create a new item here, like new appointment, you get this really ugly view. But this is the basics of what's in the underlying appointment, the I event, essentially. So what I did is I said, I want to actually take this view, this object, and add my own stuff to it. I want to make it more robust, more useful. And so there's a couple approaches to doing that. One is to implement your completely own business object, and you add the I event interface to it. That's a little more involved, but it gives you the most flexibility. But that's how the scheduler control works with your business object, is by having that I event interface. It doesn't care what's going on in the background. What I did for the demo today was much simpler. I took the event class that's part of the persistent base implementation library from DevExpress, and I just extended it. And actually what I should do is do a map inheritance and put it in the parent table. So what that says is, because I'm creating a meeting object, normally it would create a meeting table, and because I've linked to this event class, it would do a join. By doing the map inheritance, it's saying take everything that I've put in here, which is going to be my new meeting status property, and actually put it back in the event table instead. I also created a room. So a room is where I'm going to be scheduling my events. They'll be the resources along the top. So let's take a look at that again. Okay, so again, this is the default scheduler. We'll bring this up. Again, looks fantastic. When I go into my meeting, it's not going to look any different. All right, it looks very much the same. But now when I create an object, it's going to be my meeting class, which has the same sort of properties. It's actually based on the same class, or are the same properties in the background. But I've also added this meeting status dropdown. So it's a really, really easy implementation of this. Works really well and it's simple. So you'll see under here the attendees. These are resources. DevExpress calls them resources by default. So I've called them room in my case. In fact, when I go here, you'll see the option to add both. But we're just going to do room. And what that does is right now there's nothing. I can pick a whole week here, and there's nothing at the top. I can create an event that's related to nothing. What I want to do is create some rooms to actually schedule events in. So I'll do that right here. And my caption is going to be something like conference room A. And I'll do another one. Whoops, another one. Conference room B. And then we'll do one that is meeting room C. And so now when I go back to my my meeting view and refresh this, you're going to see that my resources show up along the top here, which is really kind of cool. Put it into day mode, put it into week mode. You can see how they're kind of grouped together. And now I can start creating events within those, within those rooms. And you'll see that because I picked this chunk of time to create my meeting, it automatically associated the conference room within the, I call it attendees, it's kind of a stupid name, but it automatically associated these two together. So maybe this is a meeting with Acme client. Location, we already know the location. Description, we're going to make a deal. Perfect. There it is. So that's, very, very quickly we got a scheduler in our application with our own set of fields.
You can also add colors to those resources to make it.
We can assign, yeah, absolutely. So if I go back into rooms, this is always a bit misleading, but if you pick something like, I don't know, ugly red, why not? Yeah, you can see there, it actually popped in there. I'm gonna refresh this, right? The label becomes that color. Some people expect the entire column to become that color, and that doesn't happen out of the box. You can certainly do it yourself. What I'm going to do, we have a product that we've written called Firm Bytes, and we've put some work into our scheduler. I'll bring that over here. And so you can see basically the same thing. We have a bunch of resources. We added this little resource picker up on the right so you can quickly hide and remove people. Makes it easy. Same resource selection down below. But we've added these three pieces here at the top, which are kind of cool. So changing views, you can right click and always say change view to a week view, or go to a month view, or take your pick, right? The new year view is kind of cool. But we can quickly change it up here because people don't always know to right click. So that's just a nice little shortcut. One of the things I love that I discovered quite a number of years ago, but isn't available out of the box, is the grouping. So right now we're grouping by date. I have Monday with admin, Alex, and Sam. When I change the grouping, I can actually group by the staff, or group by your resources. So now I have my person at the top and the days down below. So again, not available out of the box, but an extremely useful way to visualize your data, especially if you want a couple of people side by side to see what's going on. There's even an option to remove grouping altogether. So everybody's appointments end up in one big messy scheduler, which for me is a no-go, but some people love it. So we put that in there. And the other item I put in here was the working hours. So you can actually limit the range of hours that you display, right? Because out of the box, it's normally, we have from midnight to midnight back here. If you're in a location that doesn't, we don't work past 6 o'clock at night, you can add working hours, so you limit the range. And so we put in this little toggle working hours in case somebody does want to work outside that range. But it's a very quick and easy way to make these little adjustments. Oops, that's agenda view, has something in here, so that's not very useful. And that's it. So what we'll do is we'll set up these two actions in our application quickly. They're pretty easy to add. And so we'll just go into our module.win. These are Windows specific controllers we need to create for actions in this case. A new view controller, scheduler, actions, controller. Great name.
And by the way, in our channel, Dave has a really nice video that he does an overview of all controllers, view controllers, Windows controllers. So highly recommend that video.
That's good. Yeah, the .NET Core version or the .NET 5 version now, you don't get the designers the same way. You'll notice that. So some of this you have to do through code in the background. It's not difficult. It just takes a minute to get used to. Because I chose .NET 4.8, I have the option to use the designers. So I'm going to pop two single choice actions on here. And my first one's going to be action group by, yeah, sure, action group by, why not? I always use action at the start of my action names because when I need to go find it in the model, it's easier to find. They're all at the top. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Sure, under edit, why not? Yeah, ooh, what's happening here? All right, the other one will be the action view type. Again, under edit. Beautiful. These look super weird. Okay, so if I double click on this, it's going to get into our execute, which is what happens when you click the button. And if I was to run this right now, the actions, if they had anything in them, would show up everywhere. So we need to scope down our controller. So we're going to do a target object type equals type of iEvent. So this will actually run on any scheduler view. Target view type is going to be our list view. And that's it. So the next thing to do is actually populate these with some options. So let's do a, I'm just going to copy and paste these from my other solution because it's a little easier. So scheduler list editor is that not on there? There we go. So yeah, the scheduler is just a list view. It's no different than showing it as a grid view, just a different control on top. Action group by. Oh, I'm going to do this the ghetto way. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Go on now. There we go. I should just do a replace, but I'm lazy. All right. Da, da, da. This is like it's painful, I'm sure, to watch. Oh, it's very painful to watch now. There we go.
It's good to see someone who we look up to doing the same thing we do.
Doing the same stupid crap, right? I know it. We all do it. Okay, and we're going to call this to be on our unactivated. Populate action items, and that's good. We don't care about default options. Doesn't matter. Perfect. So let's go ahead and just run this. Here we go. So I have these two ugly drop downs. Not quite right. But it shows the options we want with our images, which is great. And like this. Okay. So except for the year view, it doesn't have an image. That's fine. And so if I want to make them look more like this, where did this go? right? These guys here, where they're not, this is like a filter style. I want the actual button style. I just go back to my controller. I can pick both of these, and I can change the, what is it called again? Item type. Item is mode, item is operation. There we go. So now when I run this, there we go. So now they're more button style. I didn't give them an image, so that's why they're not behaving all that well. But when I click one of these, I say group by staff, it actually going to hit my, if I put a breakpoint in here. Perfect. So if I do group by staff, this gets hit. So this is really creating our first controller. So what is the group by staff going to do? Well, let's go find that one. Group type, here we go. So up in here, I took my action and I added a bunch of items, my 3 items that I wanted to show up. And for the data element being held as part of that choice, I'm putting in the scheduler group type, which actually comes from DevExpress. So I'm going to grab my scheduler editor. Scheduler editor? No? Oh, hang on. Scheduler editor is a property that I added to make my life a little bit easier. And this is something you'll find when you're writing controllers, is that if you're working with a view a lot, and you know it's always going to be a list view, or you're trying to work with the editor of that view, and you don't want to keep casting it all the time, just add your own property where you just do the casting once, and then it's easier to work with. So now I just use my scheduler editor, which is the scheduler list editor. Grab the scheduler control. I don't care about this. I'm going to just take that out for now. And that's it. And I'll do the same thing for the view type. So what we're doing here in both cases is we're grabbing the data for the selected choice action item. So what was the item they picked in the dropdown? And if it's a type that we're expecting, which it should be, then we're going to go set the property on that control. So it's really actually very, very simple of a change. I'll remove these breakpoints. Actually, we don't really care. Right, so I'm going to do group by, we're going to group by staff. And there it goes. So that's just setting one property. DevExpress takes care of the rest of it for you, that control. Same thing, let's go to a week view, do a day view, right? So again, very simple. We added one controller with 2 actions, and all they do is set one property. You know, the next thing you'd probably want to do is persist that choice that they made. And that's what we did here with this iModel scheduler options, where we were setting a selected group type. So that's really setting an option in our model. You know, we put it probably in the options section, and there'd be a new item here called, you know, selected, actually it would be in the view itself. It would be the selected grouping type thing. So you can add and extend items to this model very, very easily, and then use them from your controllers to, you know, to go back and get those. So that's what's happening here. I'm not going to get into this fully today, but you should be aware that it is a possibility. I think that's pretty much it. I try to keep mine short today.
No, that's amazing. And actually, I believe that this control is something that everyone should do, because the context menu is not always that user-friendly. I have seen a lot of people like not finding what they have to do because they have to right-click and find that to change the views and to all those things. So this is a controller that pretty much we should add to all our SAF application if we have the scheduler module on it. So this is amazing. Before I let you go, Dave, there is a question on the chat about why you're using the secure objects provider, and if there is any performance issues or pitfall with it.
Secured object space provider, we didn't used to use it. It was released after, well, long after we were started in XAF. And at first it was difficult to wrap our heads around using it, simply because the security system tended to interfere. But the benefits are the fact that when you're running a report or running a dashboard, that data that they're not allowed to see is already taken out. So the secured object space provider is useful in that sense. From a performance point of view, I don't have any data on that. I haven't tried it. I just keep using it. So, security in general can cause performance issues depending on how you set up your classes and how you set up your rules. So if you are doing something like a free join, which is basically querying another table with no association whatsoever back to the current object you're trying to look at, to say, hey, is there a record in this other table that meets some criteria? When you do that for every single record, that's a lot of querying and can take a long time. So that, again, comes down to design of your business objects. If you're not caching your security rules when they log in, that makes a difference. Every time you open up a view, it goes and reloads all the security rules. There's those types of options. So, those are all things that tie back into that secured object space provider that, would have a performance effect. But that's going to happen whether you're using a secured object space provider or not, really, as long as you're using the security system. Hopefully that helps.
Basically, we can say that the difference between the XPO object space provider and the secure object space provider is that with the secure one, the properties and the data that the user is not allowed doesn't even come in the query. Correct?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So one thing that I want to add now, moving forward and keeping in the scheduler topic, is I have seen some example of customers that have done something similar. Let me know what screen I'm sharing. Let me make sure that I'm sharing the right one. Let me see. Let me try again. Okay, now I got it. So I have seen some customers, some XAFers using the scheduler model and inheriting from the event or doing the event and putting a lot of relationship. Like, let's say an example that you have a auto repair shop and they are in the work order, the service, the labor, the part, the take. And what they don't realize is that sometimes then for loading just one appointment, you are loading all the three of your application. You're loading the service, the work order, the take, the labor. So it becomes like when you have a lot of appointments, your application will start degrading. That's the performance on your design. So with that one, I will show I know that we don't have in XAF Blazor scheduler module yet, and it's not going to be ready for 2021, but it will be on 2022. So what we can do meanwhile? So we have the scheduler control for Blazor server, and we have a way to do a list editor or actually do a custom view item and through an iframe bring the scheduler component to our XAF Blazor application. So let's run here, and there is a video on my channel about that, but I want to show you just a quick proof of concept of a different implementation. So hopefully you guys are seeing my Visual Studio.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm not in my office and my monitor. The main one is the bigger one, and you're always sharing that one for some reason.
That's why you're not using, that's because you're not using Windows 11 where that is saved in your settings.
Yeah, not ready yet, not ready yet. I have to give it a little bit. Okay, so if you see here, this is a quick example of the schedule model in XAF Blazor. And again, of course, as we were talking before, you can do a list editor, but I decided to do it this way because they also needed to have some like public page where they actually just have just the scheduler. So you can do here just the scheduler, and boom, you don't have to be inside XAF. So you can use the same component both ways. So that's the approach here. So if you see here, pretty much we have three things. We have a bay, and if you have seen like auto repair shops, you have a bay that only on that bay you can do oil change. In the other bay, you do transmission fluid. In the other bay, you do something. So the bay have equipment for every type of service that they have. So pretty much you have a bay, and we can put again the color that we want that bay to look on the scheduler. So right here you have the colors, and we have appointment, and we have service type. So if we see bay 1, only service type is oil change. But if we go to maybe bay 2, it will be a different service type. So they are filtered by those service 2. And the service type we have just pretty much just a placeholder, service 2, service 3, oil change. So now if we go to the bay scheduler, and we see we are using the Blazor component from DevExpress, we have a way to filter resources, as Dave showed in the Windows application, where we can just hide bay, click bay, and then we'll only show the one that is selected. But you also have a few other functionalities. So right here, we can grab and say, this is the time where I want to do my appointment. And I want to expand because I want to see all the choices that I have available. And if you see, we are in bay 3. Bay 3, the only service type that has is service 3. So the service gets filtered only for those service types. So we can select that service type. We can put Jose oil service 3 on his car, on his truck, or whatever appointment. We can put the customer name, the information, their phone number, the vehicle year, the time this is going to appear, and so on. Basically, that's pretty much it. That way, and somehow I'm not seeing the save button because the demo effects works in that way. But let's come back to it. But that's the whole thing. If you go to bay 1, you will hit it should be on top, save right here. If you have the oil change instead of the service 1. And then if you see, you put the oil change, and the appointment, it will be blue because the oil change is blue. So oil change Volvo 960 vintage car. And then you can put all the other information and save here on top. And if you see the color of the appointment gets blue because the oil change has the blue color. So pretty much all of those things you can do. And of course you can change the dates, you can change everything else there. So that's simple, but I wanted to show the possibilities that we have right now in XAF Blazor, that we don't have to wait for the XAF module of the scheduler to arrive. So let's go to the Kanban board. I want to show it real quick. We're not going to spend too big on that one, but let's show it first in Windows. And if you see, pretty much we have a custom control of a Kanban board. And one thing that, let me see, that I think, share with Jean Paul or anyone who is interested is if I go to my XAF demo folder, give me just a second so I can show. And we will look for the Kanban implementation right here. Basically, we have a student who asked us this, and we put some documentation for it, so you can pretty much see all the steps of creating a custom control, adding it to the detail view, and doing everything that you want and so on. So if you guys are interested, happy to share that documentation. But basically, let's run it and let's see it in place. Give it a second. I went to the other screen, but basically you have here, you have tasks, and then you have pretty much the 3 boards, new, in progress, and completed. And then you can start moving from one to another one and do everything. And you go to project tasks. Right here, you will see all the tasks that we want to get completed, assigned it to, and what are the ones that we need to be moving around in our project. So really neat and really useful. And of course, right here, we could do some resizing, so don't have so much extra space, but it proves the concept that we want to show. Now, this is on Windows. Let's see it now in Blazor. So if we have our Blazor Kanban board, and let's move it over here. And right here, if you see, we have a Kanban component. Same thing, it's the same approach that we use for the scheduler. And we can reference to page Kanban and only go to the Kanban page or see it inside of XAF. But if we run it, and in this one, we did a little more customization. And if you see here, we are using the Sync framework Kanban board. We didn't have a Kanban board from DevExpress for that we could use, so we decided to use the Sync framework one that I think that is a really nice implementation. And if we give it a second.
I guess you mean Sync Fusion. Javier.
Sync Fusion. What did I mean? What did I say?
Sync Framework.
Yeah, Sync Fusion. Yeah, we have been working so much in the Sync framework that I have that on my head. So if we look in this application using that Kanban board component, you will, if you give it a second, you will see that right here we have a really nice implementation. And the great thing that I like here is like, if you see, if we go to users, this user Javier, that's the picture of the user. So we actually, if I put a picture of myself here, that picture will show in that corner of that Kanban board. So we right there with a quick visual, we know which user is assigned that task. If we go to task, when we created the task, we put the subject, of course, and we put what color we want the task to be. So if we change this to another color, that will apply there. If we change the priority, that will also increase that the other color. We can put due date status assigned it to Javier. Of course, that's the only user right here. So if we save this and we go back to the Kanban board, then you see the color here change to red for the high priority and to green for the color that we assign to it. And of course, we can move it to in progress, to the fair, to completion, and so on and so on. So basically, yeah, and of course, we are mapping that to the persistent object task and user, and everything is working as it should. So really nice. And of course, let's try this. Hopefully, we have it completely responsive a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, we need to work on that responsiveness for the mobile part, but right there is basically what we have the Kanban board integrated in the Blazor application. So that's pretty much. Just wanted to show you real quick, and if you see, basically this is a Synfusion Kanban board with a component. We are adding it, and then we are mapping and using right here. We are injecting the application provider to get the application, mapping it to the task persistent object, and so on and so on. So basically, that's pretty much it. I think that Jose is now time, so we can just give a quick teaser of the Sync framework for Entity Framework. But if you guys have any other questions, let me check the chat. Okay, I think that we're good. So Jose, just
Okay, 1 sec. Just let me put everything on the screen. This one. And I also need some blog posts, so we need this. Okay, I will double check which screen you're seeing. So you're seeing like my blog at the moment, I hope. And let's see. Well, lately we have been working on improving the Sync framework, which it looks like it's a tool that everyone needs somehow. So I've been writing a lot about the idea of the Sync framework. So if you follow my blog, you can see that I have posted since the theory, like then think about the parts of a Sync framework, then write the parts of the Sync framework in C#, and define the base classes, and in the end, like doing the first implementation, right? So basically, the Sync framework is hosted now here. Like this is a new repo. I will put it on the chat just in case someone wants it, because you can actually download it at the moment. So the Sync framework is basically using part of the XPO Sync framework. So what we decide to do is we decide to have a shared common implementation between XPO and Entity Framework, and then the version from Entity Framework will be free and open source, but we still have the closed source and commercial purpose for XPO. So anyway, so here I'm posting everything that I'm moving to this new version basically, and I want to show a test project. So this solution that I have here is basically the solution that you will see here in the repository. So far, there is no documentation for that, so soon I will go to that part. But right now, I'm basically doing a small adjustment in the code. So everything that is going to be related to the synchronization is here in this project, and that's free and open source, right? And then we have the different implementations. So we have the implementations for Entity Framework. I have not written anything about the synchronization on entity framework yet, but I will soon start, maybe next week, I think. So far what I want to show you is I will show you an application running, and then also I will run the test so you can understand the scenario. So let's start with this one. And first, let me go to this folder and delete all the test databases that I've used. So let's run this. Okay, so here basically I have a XAF. No, sorry, this is not a XAF application. I use XAF a lot, but this is a normal Blazor application. And in the same application is running the synchronization server and 3 clients using Entity Framework for SQLite. So here you have client A, B, and C. And as you can see, there is no data here, and there is no deltas also, which is the theory that we are using to base the synchronization. So the same goes for each client, right? So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize each database. You do that by clicking here. That's basically the same. This is Entity Framework, but it's the same concept of XPO. Like you need to initialize your schema, basically. So let's add some data. So in here, we will add in for the client A, 1, 2, and 3. And you will see that every time that I add data to the client A database, there is a delta. So here we have 3 records, we have 3 deltas. So let's go to client B. I will add a few more records. So again, we have 3 deltas here, 3 deltas, and in the last one, I will just add 1. So far so good, right? It's like we have 3 mobile clients. They can be mobile, web, or desktop, whatever, like depending where you're using Entity Framework. And here is what I want you to see at the moment. I will try to put everything here in context. So here we have the clients, right? So this is the console of the server. So I want you to notice this. So far everyone had their changes on their own database. So I'm going to start sending them to the server and then pulling them in the other clients. So let's use push here. And you will see that in the server, the push method was executed, and we received 3 deltas from the identity A. So now here are 0 deltas because we sent everything to the server. And in the server, we received 3 from the identity A, which is this one. I will do the same with identity B, which is a different client. So I will push. And then you will see that the client sent three transactions or difference to the server. And then I will do the same with the client C. In this case, I will only send 1 delta because there is only 1 on the database, so push. So you see that everything that we have sent here. So it means that in the sync server, we have all the changes already that we need to include in our clients. In this, we're using a peer-to-peer synchronization. There is no master database at all. So everyone is writing to the server, and the server keeps track of each difference that you have on each client, and then in the order that where those changes should happen. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to to the client A and pull the records. So you see that the client A sent, okay, give me all the records from this index, and we're sending basically an empty GUID there for client A. So basically the server returns 4 deltas, which are the changes from B, which are 3, and the changes for C, this 1, so 4 in total. I will do the same for, so also here you can see that the data is already here. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. I guess I added, yes, in here I added 1. So this one that you have here is the record from client C. So we'll do the same on B. So when I pull, since we have never pulled the records from the server, again, is sending the empty GUID as a start index, and then the client receive, or the server returned 4 differences. So those are the 4 deltas, and it already include them in the data. So A and B should look exactly the same. And as you can see, they do that. And now let's go to C and let's pull. And again, since none of the clients have ever pulled, all of them send the same start index, so which is basically an empty GUID. So, and this one got 6 deltas. And as you can see, like now the data is exactly the same as B and A. So all the clients are synchronized already. The neat thing about this example is that the server and the clients, all of them are running in one application. So you don't have to start several clients and start working on that. So, okay, so at the beginning, like each of the clients send, okay, give me the deltas from the index 0 and on, right? So I'm going to add one more record to the client C, even though all of them have the same data at the moment. So this will be hello. And I'm going to add, and then we have one delta, and I'm going to push. So we receive one delta from entity C. So now when I pull in the client A or B, what is going to be interesting is that the clients are keeping track of when was the last time they pulled data, basically. So it's like in GitHub, you have all the data since your last pull or fetch. So the same goes here. So if I pull from client A with client A, basically I will send the last index that I processed, and I will get all the difference since that index. So let's pull. And now, okay, see the client A got the changes starting from this index here. So basically each client is keeping track of what they have and which difference they need in order to become the whole, right? So right now, client A and client C looks the same, but client B doesn't look the same. So let's pull here. And all of them are the same. So let me stop the studio for a while. And everything that we did, oh, sorry, stop sharing. So I hope that you're seeing my studio again, not my desktop. So everything that we did, I just saw a stop button and I clicked it. It was to stop the solution and not to stop sharing. So everything that we did is saved here in this database folder. So you can see these are new changes in the repository because they get included there. So let's come here. And okay, all of them, at least the one that are from data, because you have deltas and data here, deltas and delta for each, have the same size. So see A, B, and C, all of them are 24 kilobytes because they share the same data, and the deltas are all the same size also because they share the same amount of deltas. And I'm going to open a few of them so you can see. And let's open. I'm going to open first one of with the data. All of them look the same. So in contacts, here we have all the same records that we just insert on each client. So basically, if you go and check all the databases, all will have the same ID and the same names, so the same values. This is a really simple example, but you can basically track any complex transaction. You don't have to do just like one record at a time. You can do a really complex transaction and everything will be saved as a delta. So now let me open one of the deltas databases. So you will see. So in the delta databases, we have basically the index. So this is what we use to know which transaction we need to process next. And then we have, in here you cannot see it basically, but in the operations we have binary data. So this binary data is the little difference that we are keeping track on the transactions in general. One sec, I think that there is I think, guys, there is a question on the chat, so if anyone can go on and check it. So, okay, we have like, this is what is being stored on the Deltas database. So now in this case, I'm using SQLite for everything, but they don't have to be SQLite. So far, if we check the solution, we have providers for Postgres, SQLite, and SQL Server. So you can keep track in any of them and exchange difference between any of them. So that means that you can have one server using Postgres and one server using SQL Server, and that will basically work the same as it works on XPO. That it doesn't matter the target databases that you have; it matters um, the configuration for the engine in general. So in here it's not exactly the same, but it's almost the same. Actually, in the end, we will cover also MySQL, and we will stop with those 4 implementations, at least so far, for what is left of the year. But if I show you the test cases, so here we have the test cases. I have these tests. All of them are not unit tests, they are integration tests. So basically, I create the use case, which is the scenario that I want to test, and then I write the code for it. And as long as it passes all the implementation scenario, for me, it means that it's working. We don't go as deep as unit tests. If anyone wants to help with that in the project is open source. So you can just send me a message or something and we can talk about it. And okay, in this case, it's a little bit different. So I'm doing everything in code, so there's no visual representation of it. It's a kind of more boring example. But here you will see that we're using 2 different databases. We are synchronizing SQLite with SQL Server. So I will not show or explain this boilerplate code because it might change on the future. We're still on active development, so some things change a little bit from the original implementation. But this is the interesting part. So see, so we have client A, which is an SQLite, and then master, which is a SQL server. Here we are deleting both databases completely, and here we start adding data to all of them. So see, once you have the context, it's like you're just working with the context. You don't have to do any extra steps to keep tracking data there. So I'm doing an add, an update, and a delete here all at the same time. So then I save the changes, and that will save enough transactions to replicate on the other side. And then I'm pushing to the server. Now in the SQLite side, I'm pulling, so I get everything that is done on the SQL server. And then I continue adding and modifying data. So in the end, I do, again, save changes, and I push to the server. And then I get both, and both of them should have the same amount of records. So I will just put a debug point here. I will not stop like in each place. So just let me, okay, I will have to check out this one, and then the SQLite database, because I want to show you that the data is there actually. So let's put a breakpoint here.
Hey, Jose, meanwhile, Alex asked in the chat, what happens when validation rules are involved? For example, a unique rule that 2 properties cannot have the same name or something like that, and how those conflicts get resolved?
Okay, so okay, before I run the test, basically it goes the same as when you have a single database. The validations will execute exactly the same. So it also means that, for example, if you have client A and client B, you mean, and in client A you inserted the data through SAF. SAF array took care that there is no repeated data there. And then when you send it, it should not be on the other side. Also, all these synchronization frameworks, since we want to make them totally independent from the database engine, we don't use any type of autonumerics. And if we use autonumerics, we generate them ourselves using C# classes, because in that way we can make sure that we can replicate also the autonumeric, because in the other cases, the keys or the autonumerics that we use for the keys comes from the database. So we cannot ensure that they are totally unique. In this case, the only requirement to use the XPO sync framework or the entity framework sync framework is that you have to use GUID type of keys, because we know that they will not collide. And everything else should basically work the same. And the validation cases or any case related to data should be the same as the case that you have for one single database. But if you have like a more specific case that you want to see or understand, just send me a message and I will record a video about it. Also, this is like a community project, so at least the version for entity framework. So if anyone wants to contribute, have requirements or something, just keep in contact in the repository. Okay, so let me put that the book point here. Okay, so here we are start using the context, right? Okay, so first we will delete both databases and we will start adding data and see what is happening. So here we're already using the both context. So let's continue. And this will go till the end. Basically should stop around here. So see, here we are showing in the console everything that is happening. And each command that is being tracked, we track them at like a query level. So basically we replicate the queries. And this test will pass basically. So what I want to show you is, just 1 second, I should have opened this before, the Navicat, because I want to show you that now we have two different databases, but the schema is the same and the data should be the same in both. So just give me 1 sec to open Navicat, and the database for this is EF blog new. Really nice name that I use there. So here I have Navicat. So here we have the tables, and this is the data that we have. And let me open also the SQLite database should be in the file system. So let me open that. And let's get this path. And this is the test DB. So where is Navicat? Here. Let's put this here and then put this on the other side. And we just need that. So I feel like a magician showing like, okay, these are like the same, right? Or this is your card. So basically here you can see we have the same data and the same keys. So the most important thing is like the synchronization is kind of really easy concept. Well, I can say that after like 8 years of working on something like that, the beginning was overwhelming. I mean, we have tried to do it in so many ways, but the most important thing that you need to understand is that it's not only about synchronizing the parts that you have. It's more about implementing business rules that allow you to have a good flow in the information. In that way, you will not have synchronization problems. I mean, you can really avoid them if you plan the flow of your data. And I will be writing more articles and making a few videos about that, because I'm really excited about this new project, especially because I'm getting to use entity framework that I used it for tested before, but never in production environments. So I'm getting to know a lot about how entity framework core is working. Also, this is not for this session, but the framework was designed in for one reason. I mean, we use it for XPO, and we will share the code with the XPO version also. But the main idea of having this agnostic implementation and then implemented by database provider, the XPO or entity framework, is because we want to include a lot of different providers. So in here we have an in-memory database that you can use also. And we don't have as many test applications. There is a MAU application here, but it's on load at the moment because this MAU application depends on Visual Studio 2022. So that's not working so good at the moment. And also we have the same, we want to make the same scenarios that we did with the XPO version, that we have the mobile application that was made on Xamarin. Then we have the sync server, and then we have a XAF application. We will have that scenario in the future for Entity Framework, but it's not working at the moment because all of that requires Net 5 or Net 6. So the main idea of the sync framework is like, okay, let's forget about the past. We will start having compatibility from Net Standard 2.1 and above. That's why there is no Xamarin example at the moment, because this requires Entity Framework 5, which requires Net Standard 2.1, which doesn't run on Xamarin at the moment. You have to run Net Standard 2. So that's it for this video, guys. The link for the repo is on the chat. And if there is no questions, I think there's a question there.
They are congratulating you, Jose. Great stuff. Thank you, Alex. One thing that I do want to say about Entity Framework Core, and hopefully the team from XPO is listening to us. One thing that I really like about Entity Framework Core is that, especially for performance projects, there is a way so you can, for example, when you do, let's call it like in XPO, commit changes, I can put some type of extra information log like Jose testing. And then when the query gets generated, that information is included in that log. So I know that this query is generated exactly for this part of my code, for this commit. So I know that this controller is generating this query. I know that this action is generating this query. So it gives you a really tuned way to actually make sure why all these queries are getting generated, where are they coming from. So I really like that about Entity Framework. They actually did a good job there. So besides that, guys, I think that that's pretty much covered the meetup from today. If you guys have any other questions, of course, you can say it now, mute your mic, or just put it on the chat. Or as always, you can contact us, Dave, Jose, myself, or anyone from the community in our Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. So that's basically it. I know that Jose always like to take a picture at the end of the meetup.
It's picture time. It's picture time. So hold on, let me put this in the other monitor. So I'm going to do really smart, something smart that I've been using my phone to do that. I can just use it like a screenshot recorder for that. So hold on, snippet. Okay, guys. So if someone wants to share their cameras, like turn them on, and let's take the picture for this meetup. So everyone is shy today, so it's only you, me, and Dave.
Fine.
So
that's fine.
1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Got it.
There we have.
And we have a lot of nice videos coming on. We're gonna have a video about XAF Blazor deploying to IIS server, and a lot of new workaround for XAF Blazor. So having the logo linked to a different page, having public page, having a list editor, having a lot of good stuff. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you guys being here. This is like, we love talking about XAF and XPO and pretty much everything that is related. So thank you everyone for being here. Thanks Dave, thanks Jose, and see you in the next one.
Bye.